some of the biggest sources of the water are, and right there we see the fire retardant as well.
Well, they'll go to the closest water sources they can get, and the helicopters can use those water sources. Now, the fixed-wing aircraft, they have to fly back to the tanker base, and Ramona closed down just last August, so those tankers, once they make their drops, they're going to have to go back up to Hemet to reload for a drop. In the meantime, the helicopters will be working the fire, and they'll probably use the lake there that's the closest, but there's several water sources around there. They usually try to get the closest one because then you have the least amount of downtime in between drops. And the helicopters, they operate at a lower level than the fixed-wing aircraft, so the air attack will be above, and he runs that whole program, so he has to make sure that they're all safe. So when the air tankers come in, if they do, then the helicopters have to pull out for a little bit to let the air tankers through, and then the helicopter would take back over. But they'll probably be using quite a few helicopters, I would think.
And we're seeing right now as Sky 10 zooms in that's a lot of the brush in the canyon area that's right behind the mobile home parks. It's part of the complexity that you were talking about, and then added to the fact that at least for those fixed wings, they've got to go to Hemet. So that adds a layer here that we don't usually see when they can run up to Ramona, making this just a little bit more difficult as we see a structure on fire right beside what was kind of a green patch.
Right, yeah, and that area, it's called the urban wildland interface because they're right next to each other. It's pretty common in San Diego County and actually in Southern California. We have it everywhere. So the firefighters are pretty used to it. It doesn't make things any easier for them. And those canyons are nice. There's nothing in there. The brush is probably grown for years without having a fire in there. So there's a lot of combustible brush out there that's going to travel very quickly if you have any kind of winds at all. And we do have winds today. I don't know what the speed is down there they've got, but it pushes them through there, and then you being right next to it, and especially mobile homes are lightly built, and that's just part of the nature of having them, and they're closely packed together, so those things make it additionally dangerous for the firefighters and can cause it to spread very rapidly.
Bob, we're going to give you a minute just to catch your breath. Don't go away. There's way too much happening here with the flames as we're looking live on Sky 10, but you just mentioned the wind, and Megan Perry, our meteorologist, is in studio right now, and you're tracking these winds. It's not helping right now.
That's right, and we actually have some stronger winds headed our way as we head into tomorrow. I wanted to give you a live shot right now as we look from our Mount San Miguel camera looking north. You can see the black smoke from this fire, and let's give you an update on where this fire is burning. So here's a map. So it is north of the 8. It is very warm. In fact, some of the reporting stations that are nearby are in the 90s right now. The closest reporting station that I could find where this fire is burning, it's 87 degrees, pretty low humidity. When we talk about Santa Ana winds, which these are not Santa Ana winds, but when we talk about Santa Ana winds, we look at humidity levels between anywhere from 5 to about 20%. We're not much higher than that. Humidity at 31% is pretty low. And then of course you mentioned the winds. They are sustained right now at 9 miles per hour out of the west, and they've been seeing pretty gusty conditions all afternoon. Since about 12:30, we've been seeing gusts anywhere from 12 to 18 miles per hour in this area, anywhere from the west to the west-southwest. So we are certainly dealing with some wind. In fact, as I pull up our wind streamlines, you can see that onshore flow is with us. So these are westerly winds. Again, we are going to be seeing that pick up as we head into the day tomorrow. Those gustier winds are going to be with us through the rest of this afternoon. Once the sun sets, which of course is hours from now, those winds will start to taper off. The humidity is going to be going up, so we will have favorable conditions headed our way as we head into this evening, but that isn't going to be happening for at least a couple more hours now, and then the winds are going to be picking up as we head into the day tomorrow, especially in the mountains and the deserts, because you can still see a lot of black smoke burning due to this Las Cochas fire. Very warm conditions. Again, 87 degrees right now. The humidity fairly low at 31%, and those winds have been gusting all afternoon. Again, since about 12:30 this afternoon until right now, those winds have been anywhere from about 12 to 18 miles per hour. And then of course we look at the sustained winds that are up to 9 miles per hour. That is continuously pushing that fire and continuing to help fuel it. And of course, we haven't seen rain. You know, it's been a very dry winter. We're in a drought right now, and we had a lot of heat last week, but we also had some rain, but not necessarily in this area. So the fuel moisture, the brush that we have, is also ripe and ready for burning. And you know, until we get some decent widespread rain across the entire county, this is certainly going to be an issue. So we'll continue to track that as we head into the rest of this afternoon. But through about 7, I would say it's going to be pretty breezy to gusty, and after that, conditions are really going to improve. Kimberly?
All right. Thank you, Megan. And Megan will be standing by as we watch that. And also with us on air is retired fire captain Bob Lyon. And Bob, just as Megan was giving us the weather, we saw in real time a helo make a water drop on a huge inferno of flames, a home fully engulfed. And almost as quickly as the water laid down, the flames shot back up. The fuel source here seems to really be just keeping this fire in some of the areas, not in the one we're looking at now, but just a little ways away in these homes. There's a lot of fuel here.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, once it gets into structural areas like motorhome or mobile homes like those, then you start getting into plastics. You've got vehicles there that have gasoline in them. You have people that have, you know, gas-powered equipment where they might have gas cans laying around, plastic furniture, and lots of sources. So water drop from the helicopter is great to try to slow it down, but in areas like that, it's really tough to try to get a knockdown until they get, you know, actual crews in there to get at the actual base of the fire, because you're just going to slow it down with those, which is super helpful, and they have to do that. But right now they're probably trying to get their equipment in there, and like you told you, the difficulty there is very narrow streets and mobile home parks. And that's a very big mobile home park, and it's difficult to get around in there. So the rigs have to be careful, too, because they don't want to get in a spot where they're going to get trapped back there themselves. So there's quite a bit going on, and with the heat conditions we've got, like Megan mentioned, the wind and the heat, firefighter fatigue can come into play pretty quickly. So you want to make sure you get a lot of personnel in there to turn them over quickly so you don't have firefighters dropping on the line. They're prepared for this, and they work out all the time, and they're in great condition in Southern California. Firefighters pretty well prepared to fight in these kind of conditions. But it doesn't really change the fact that it's really hot out there, and it is very draining on you when you're out there.
And we see the crews. They are on the ground. They're right in front of this structure that's on fire. We're looking at Lakeside in the Los Coches area. This is the Monterey Mobile Lounge, and it's the mobile home park with about 118 sites. This being a structure in that area, it could be a home. And we see there an RV right out in front. We see those crews. We've seen fire drops on this particular one. And as you've been describing, wow, we just saw something just absolutely explode just behind the house. On air as they're trying to fight the front side, the back side just exploded. According to the fire personnel on scene, they are telling us they've made good progress where the fire started, but it blew to these other locations, and that's what they're battling right now, and that's what we see. And at the top of our screen, you can almost not see it through the black smoke, but you see firefighters on a deck of a house just to the north of where we're looking at now. Another water drop in the yard. Didn't hit the flames directly, but then they've got the fire truck nearby. This one really seems to be a tough one.
Yeah, exactly. And it's probably like one of the more difficult scenarios that firefighters face, because you have structures involved, you've got vehicles that could be involved, RVs, like you said, and you've got brush. So you've got all the conditions there, and there are different types of firefighting you would use on each of those, but you have to kind of combine it because you've got all those things involved. So, I mean, they've studied for this, they've practiced for all this, so they've got a good hand on what they're supposed to do, but actually completing all those tasks is a lot of work and very difficult, and the incident commanders have a lot on their plate to try to get this thing under control.
They certainly do, and Bob Lyon, retired fire captain, we want you to hear this as well as you stay on air, because on the phone with us, we have Lakeside Fire District Jeremy Davis joining us. Jeremy, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Can you give us an update of the situation right now as we're watching just one of these fires right now, and it's a virtual inferno?
Yeah, you described it perfectly. We've made some progress near the origin of the fire. It's the primary residence. The fire's been knocked down. They're doing some extensive mop up around 4 additional homes in the area. But the fire did spread towards the east and has burned a few additional homes in that area. A few cars have been burned, and the explosions you're seeing are propane tanks in the backyard for their barbecues.
So that's the explosions that we see. Are you hearing about injuries? We were told we don't know how severe, but there may be some injuries.
Yeah, there are injuries. I don't know the extent of the injuries, but we do have a couple of residents with some burn injuries at this time.
It doesn't appear from what we can see from Sky 10 that there are a ton of cars on the narrow roads kind of headed toward, either Viejas Casino to the evacuation center. What do you think the plan is, and are we just not seeing it? It doesn't seem like people are on the move in the area.
There are a lot of cars on the surface streets out here. The roads are they're at a standstill because there's so much traffic trying to evacuate out that it appears like it's impossible to evacuate right now just with the number of cars. But Sheriff's is doing a great job of moving them through the intersection.
And what do you want people to know then right now?
Avoid the area if you can. It's a fast-moving, ever-changing incident, and we're trying to get a bunch of residents out of the neighborhood that want to evacuate, and incoming traffic is just going to hold them up.
And there to the right of our screen, we are able to see some of that traffic just to the right. Tell us about the spot fires that you mentioned, the original area where it broke out. Pretty good situation now, but it's these spot fires.
Yeah, correct. Yes, I was on one of the streets, the Calle Risa area, and the embers were dropping into the backyards where a lot of homeowners had some dry combustible materials, and that stuff was catching on fires with the embers, probably about a quarter mile in front of the fire itself.
Wow. And tell us, we know this is north of the 8, Los Coches, in Lakeside, east of the 67. Can you pinpoint, more specifically, like what streets where the actual mobile homes are affected?
East Los Coches Road and Highway Business 8 is one, and that is going to be the northwest section of the fire, and it's spread east from there towards East Los Coches over to Via de Luz. Sorry about that.
Via de la what? De Luz?
Via de Luz.
De Luz. And are you seeing that the situation to get the people where they need to be is happening? You mentioned traffic, but are people being able to get out of the direct area where the main part of these flames are?
Yes, they are. It's the immediate affected area. We are getting residents out of there. It's just as we get closer to Los Coches and Interstate 8 and Business 8, that's where they're kind of bottlenecking from all the neighborhoods coming together. But the immediate affected area, the danger area, we are getting residents out of that area.
And we see the crews on the ground. We see the planes, the helos. Tell us about the firepower on this blaze right now.
Yeah, we've got, from what I can see, at least 3 helicopters making drops on the east end of the mobile home park where it meets the residential area. And we've got 2 air tankers that I've seen so far making drops. And they're doing a good job of protecting the homes that aren't affected yet from the advancing fire.
And we know Lake Jennings is not far. What are the water sources in that area?
Lake Jennings is our best water source. It's a huge reservoir with plenty of water for us. And then we do have a neighborhood that has plenty of fire hydrants that are providing plenty of water at this time.
And just give us what you need the public to know right now before we let you go, Jeremy. We really appreciate it.
Again, if you could stay out of the neighborhood, please stay out of the neighborhood. It's residents only, and we're trying to get everybody out of the neighborhood in these affected areas.
And we see right there the fire crews dragging the hoses, trying to get closer to a really stubborn fire. Several water drops have gone on this one house. The crews are right there trying to get the hoses on it. You talked about propane tanks. It seems like there's a lot of combustible things in the yards, at least in this one particular case.
Yeah, it's typical of most homes that you have your patio furniture, your barbecues, and just whatever else you have for your own comfort. It's just in incidences like this, a lot of that stuff becomes fuel for the fire.
It certainly is, and we appreciate Jeremy Davis with Lakeside Fire Protection District. Thanks for joining us and giving an update on this.
You're welcome.
We're continuing to cover the Los Coches fire here in Lakeside. It's the Monterey Mobile Park area with about 118 sites. It is a 55 and over community. There are some injuries, but we don't know the severity of those. And some of the problem that we've seen, and we see those crews really going into that green belt there in the canyon to try to get on the other side of this home. They're surrounding it, and there's another water drop. Just a lot of fuel on this particular home. And we're just hitting our 4 o'clock newscast. For the people joining us, we're live covering a fire in Lakeside. This is Los Coches. This is north of the 8. Another explosion in that yard. This is about the third explosion. There are firefighters right in that area. So much fuel, whether it's propane tanks, whatever we might be seeing. And Bob Lyons, a retired fire captain, has been kind of giving us a play-by-play. And if you can see this, Bob, what an incredible landscape we're looking at now with fire crews right in the middle of it.
Yeah, I've got a visual, and I'm watching your live updates on it. And yeah, exactly. And just like Jeremy said, people have all kinds of things in their yard. The propane tanks are a real danger to the firefighters. But if you think about your own property, almost everybody's got a propane barbecue in their backyard of some sort, and those tanks become dangerous once they're exposed to fire. And in this situation, you've got all that brush in there, and you can see like that. I can see the explosion. That was probably a propane tank going off. So that makes it difficult for the firefighters because they have to kind of back up and stay back a little bit for their own safety and try to squirt the water from a little further away. But you can see those engines that are just to the north of it. They probably have a pretty good water source over there, probably hydrants available, and the helicopters are kind of keeping it at bay while trying to keep it from getting even worse than it is. So they're all doing the best they can right now. They've probably got more equipment coming. Like I said, the dangers they have is the exploding propane tanks, got a lot of combustibles in there, and the heat and the weather are going to be very difficult for people. Very taxing on the firefighters. You're wearing all that gear. You're slugging it around up and down hills, and it's pretty difficult for people to do for very long.
Yeah, almost 90 degrees, Megan Perry tracking that right now. And we just see these firefighters on all sides on the ground on this particular house. This is probably the 4th or 5th helo we've seen do a drop. If there isn't another explosion, it seems like it might be in a better place than it was 5 minutes ago, but at least 3 times after the major house was fully engulfed, we've seen huge, massive explosions in the yard of this home. There's part of the team that's up there firefighting has been strictly on this particular structure.
Yeah, and a lot of buildings in East County are supplied with propane tanks, and they can be anywhere from 250 gallons to 500 gallons for residential. So that's a lot of propane, a lot of potential for an explosion, besides the normal 5 to 10 gallon size ones that you have for your barbecue. But the firefighters, the good news is you can see all the pink on the ground there. That was where a fixed wing aircraft dropped a retardant load, and you can tell that area where they dropped it at, it's kind of preventing the fire from extending beyond that. So the firefighters will get a better opportunity to get their hoses on that and get that thing extinguished. And they're doing a good job coordinating everything. They've got the aerial drops from the helicopters are coming in. I'm sure they're over at Lake Jennings there and picking up their water source and bringing it back. So, at least at this point, from what I can see, it looks like, other than the fire still going, it looks like they have a good handle on it. It's going to be a while before they get it out, but at least right now they can't relax yet, of course. But it looks to be making good progress on their part.
Yeah, let's hope there are no more explosions, but it's not often that we have such a close-up view and just a repeated symphony almost of the helicopter just dropping, making those water drops, and you see the just absolute plume of white smoke, which was a great sign because they've really had a tough battle with this particular house. And here it comes again. I mean, it's been every 30 seconds for a while.
Yeah, I was on helicopters for a while, and it's quite a dance that they do, because as each one comes in, it has to be coordinated. One will make a drop. They know where they're at. The air attack will issue them in, and then in the meantime, they're going over to the lake. So it's kind of like this well-orchestrated dance where they'll go over to the lake, they'll drop into the lake, they'll be getting their water. Next helicopter, they'll take off, come to the fire, and the next helicopter will go into the water source, start taking on water. And they just kind of keep going in a big circle around it, and that's why you'll see them just keep going one after the other. And
good point that you made is that we saw the fire retardant kind of make a perimeter around this particular house, and then the water drops within that perimeter. That's a real coordination to kind of be able to snuff that fire out and keep it from hitting all those other homes nearby.
Yeah, absolutely. And, all the firefighters, they're doing a great job out there. And this has all been planned out before. They practice this. They have drills all the time. So it doesn't replace the real thing, which is what they're facing today. But they're doing a great job at it. And you can tell that where the retardant drop was made was at the head of the fire, that it was headed eastbound. So that slowed the progress of the fire and allowed the firefighters to kind of get in there and get a handle on it. So now they're just dealing with the fire that they have in front of them. But I'm sure they have other units that are probably further east that are looking just in case there's any more spot fires caused by this. But you can kind of tell by the direction of the smoke, that's kind of whichever way the wind's blowing, it's obviously blowing the fire that way. So that would be where your spot fires would be going, is wherever that smoke's going, that's where you're going to be looking for spot fires.
Oh, very interesting point. And Bob, we're going to bring in Megan Perry again on that note. You're watching that smoke and where it's going, Megan, and tell us what's happening weather-wise.
That's right. So we have the sea breeze right now. So those westerly winds, those winds have been anywhere from the west to west-southwest. So that's the way it's coming out of the west. So it's going to be pushing that fire and that smoke east. So that's what we're going to be tracking as we head forward into the next several hours. Luckily, the winds will not be switching at any point tonight. They will be calming, especially as we head into sunset. Pretty incredible to see, yes, these helicopter drops, and they are nailing it. I mean, right on top of it, and you love seeing that white smoke. And there's certainly been less black smoke. So the firefighters are doing such a great job, especially given the conditions. It is very warm right now. It's been hot for a really long time. Temperatures in that area, the closest reporting station that I could find to where this fire is burning, 88 degrees right now, and it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Humidity also on the low side. Now, there have been drier conditions, and there have also been more humid conditions. Last week, it was so hot. It was so humid, which makes it even hotter for those firefighters. Humidity right now is on the low side at 32%, and the winds have been sustained all afternoon. Since about 12:30 today, we've seen those sustained winds between about 5 to 11 miles per hour, and then the gusts anywhere from 12 to 18 miles per hour. It is going to remain warm for a lot longer, which is, of course, heat is over time, it affects you more and more. So that's going to be harder for those firefighters that are out there fighting this fire with all of that equipment, as you've been hearing. 88 degrees right now. Now, the wind tomorrow is going to be gustier. We're going to see some stronger winds coming through. So once the sun sets, the winds will ease. The humidity is going to go up. We actually should even see the marine layer reach this area, which is going to add even more moisture into the atmosphere. So that all of these things are going to be beneficial things as we head into this evening, but we're just not there yet. So a couple more hours, pretty much until sunset. The winds are going to remain fairly gusty. The humidity is going to remain fairly dry. And then tomorrow, the winds are going to be picking up even stronger. So you know they're going to be out there all night, making sure that all of the spot fires are out once they do get this fire under control. So they're doing a great job, but the conditions right now are certainly not easy for the firefighters there. And Kimberly?
We'll watch one more drop right there. I mean, they've got them coming one right after another. Absolutely incredible. Thank you, Megan, for that. And we are getting some good news from firefighters on the scene. They are saying they're making good progress, and the fire is now what they're calling a slow rate of speed. That's good news there. They've asked for a couple of additional hand crews in the area. And Bob Lyon, a retired fire captain who's also been a pilot for many of these situations. But Bob, while Megan was talking and Sky 10 was really focused in right over that house, it looked like the helo was right over the tree line. I mean, it looked that low for one of the water drops. Talk to me a little bit about these pilots and the flying, because that was an incredible drop, as they all are. But
yeah, the pilots, they're really good at their jobs, and they do an incredible job. And one thing people don't realize is that those guys that fly there, they come in really low, just like you said, treetop level sometimes. But in the meantime, you're battling the smoke and the heat rising up from the fire. And when they drop their water, most of those aircraft are dropping at least 300 gallons of water. And that's 3,000 pounds that's on the aircraft. And then suddenly you open up the tank and it drops 3,000 pounds off the helicopter. So the pilots have to be able to control the aircraft in the meantime while it drops all that weight. So they're doing a great job out there, and they're some of the best pilots in the world at doing that sort of thing. And it's quite a task that they're undertaking, and it's a lot of work out there, and it's not easy sitting in those aircraft. It's hot in there. They're flying through smoke conditions, and they have to be really careful because that much water dropping, they're super careful about. They don't want to hit anybody on the ground. So they're orchestrating it with like I was a crew chief, so I was sitting in the left seat. So I would talking to the people on the ground, making sure that where they were. And then in the meantime, we're also talking to the air track, and he's telling us where all the aircraft are. So you're really looking out for a lot of things. You're being careful about wires that are down low. You're looking out for people. You're looking out for other aircraft. So it's a very dangerous job those guys undertake, but they do a great job at it.
And we've seen today our Sky 10 is not far from the area. Obviously, we're not in their way, but you see all the black smoke. How do you fly through that black smoke? You can't even see through it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you try not to get so low that you're really in it for very long, but it's kind of impossible at some times where the smoke will drift up into it. But you're moving pretty quickly, so the blades will push the smoke, and you're going through it pretty quickly. And what you do is the pilots, when you come in, you kind of reconnoiter the area. The air attack's talking to you about it. You have a general visualization of it, so you have an idea of where the wires are at. You're looking for those. You're looking for the terrain and all those things. So even though you're kind of blind for a few seconds, possibly, while you're flying through the smoke, like I said, those guys are exceptionally good pilots, and they don't do anything that's reckless. They're very careful about it, and one of the things they're pretty good at is knowing the terrain. That's why you'll see them up practicing a lot, where they're flying around and just checking the terrain out, because they need to know all the different areas of San Diego County. So they have a general basis for what they're doing, and they know topography pretty well, wind conditions and the weather. All those things do affect the aircraft.
An incredibly dangerous job. We're looking at power poles right there, and there's a lot they have to watch out for.
Yeah, exactly. The job of firefighting, anywhere you do it, whether it's wildland, structural, or aerial, there's inherent dangers in each one of those, and that's one of the things about those jobs. They are very dangerous jobs, but they try to mitigate the danger, so they do the best they can in trying to be aware of all the possibilities that are there for them. So it's quite an orchestrated event that takes place, and the incident commander has his hands full on something like that, because he's thinking through all those things, and he's making sure that his crews are well aware of everything that's going on.
And this is such a dense area, Bob. We're speaking with Bob Lyon, a retired fire captain. There's 118 sites in this mobile home park. It's dense in terms of just one house close to each other. They are 55 and up. We see a lot of the fire crews just trying to get a handle on the flames. But how are they also navigating and working with the other agencies in terms of trying to make sure people are out of these houses and that they try to mitigate injuries?
Well, that's one of the really good things about Southern California. We've been doing this for a long time. We've learned a lot over the years, and the interagency coordination is probably as good as you'll ever find any place in the whole world. The police agencies, the sheriff's department, the police departments, the fire agencies, utilities, they're all well versed at working with each other. And every year they get together, they have a big drill where the interagency cooperation is put to a test, the communication systems. So they're pretty used to working with each other, and they've got a good grasp of it. So we've been burned in the past, not to make a pun, but in the past, when we didn't have good communications, those things have been ironed out. And so we have a great system in place now. And so you'll see, like, they know how to coordinate that. The police agencies are well aware what the fire department is doing. The fire department knows what they're doing, and they're going to try to evacuate people. And as the captain from Lakeside stated, you know, one thing that they try to do is try to make sure people don't try to clog the roads up while trying to leave, because that makes it very difficult for the ambulances and the fire trucks and the police cars to get into where they need to be. So there's an awful lot going on there, but they do have a lot of practice working with each other.
The other thing we see as we speak to retired Fire Captain Bob Lyon, in these shots from Sky 10 as we look live, the urban wildlife interface is very apparent. You see the dense canyon, you see the trees, and you see how close they are to structures and in many cases the mobile homes in this area. The canyons haven't burned here in a long time. How do the fire crews look at these canyons, and should we be looking at trying to do some controlled burns? How do we view these canyons that end up being a pretty hard firefight when they catch fire close to the homes?
Well, that's a very difficult subject, because what you run into is they do control burns where they can and when they can to try to, you know, keep those areas. But a lot of those areas, the brush has grown for years and can be 20, 30, 40 feet tall in some places. And it is very, very flammable when it gets this dry out. When your humidity levels drop, the brush dries out, becomes really rapid. The other problem is you have air pollution control issues when you have controlled burns. They have to deal with different agencies when it comes to that, as far as the wildlife goes and protecting the environment. So it's not as easy as you'd like to just be able to go out and burn areas when the season's right. They have to plan it out well in advance, and I don't know all the agencies they have to contact, but I'm sure there's quite a list of government agencies you have to go through in order to clear brush out like that.
Is much of that happening in San Diego County or not, because of everything you're talking about?
You'll see every year they have CAL FIRE. They usually do a couple of controlled burns every year. At least they try to get those done. So it's in the works, and it's not something that they're just ignoring. They try to do it wherever they can, wherever they think they'll get the best advantage as far as making a fire break and getting rid of some of that really old brush. But you know, the thing is, people live in Southern California. They love living here, and we all like to see the nice green canyons. So, you know, you have a lot of people that aren't necessarily in favor of you burning that all out either. So we kind of have to weigh it out with the comfort level of what people are accepting of.
And as we look at it, it brings up the subject of each individual house and defensible space. And when we see these pictures like today, it's apparent how important that is.
Yeah, exactly. And every year they stress that to have to have defensible space around your house, to go around your house. And, you know, again, it falls down to that same thing. Is everybody wants to have a defensible space, but people still like to have their nice big trees and the brush and different things around their house because of the beauty that it enhances their property with, and they like to look at that. So the areas that you can get them to put the stuff back, that's great if they can get that defensible space. But some of the other things that are important is that not having a lot of combustible things around your house, not having the plastic chairs all sitting around, having trash bags full of old plastic bottles you're going to take to the recycler because that stuff burns amazingly well. So, there's things you can do to try to clean up around your house and keep some of those things away. And dead brush is the worst thing. So if you have trees that are dead, brush that's very dried out and dead, those are the things you want to try to get rid of because those are very easily caught fire and spread fires very rapidly.
And Bob, as we look at Sky 10, has been hovering over this one house that's really been an issue with major explosions that have happened after the initial house was engulfed. And now we see a lot of white smoke. You've been looking at it for a minute as we've been talking. We see that helo coming back. They have made a dozen more drops since we've been talking on this one property. How do you see this firefight right now in this area as you look at this?
Well, like they said, I think they've made really good progress on it. I think they've got a good handle on it, but nobody rests easy until it's all the way out because the one thing that firefighting can really have happen to you is things turn bad very quickly. So even though it looks like you've got a good handle on it, you never know what's around the corner. It's just like those explosions that were happening. And people have lots of things on their property that you're unaware of. People have ammunition, they have propane tanks, they can have gas cans laying around, all kinds of different things that you're unaware of. So the firefighters are probably being very cautious about that house, or if it is a house, trying to get to it. They're being pretty careful about it, but it looks like they've got a pretty good handle on it. And that's why they're having those helicopters make those drops on there, is because it's safer for those guys to come in and make those drops from above than get the firefighters too close to it until they're pretty sure that there's nothing else going to explode in there or cause them real danger.
Good point, because they were on the ground as those explosions were going off, and you can see in real time how close those fires get and how unpredictable these fires are. You talk about the spread of spot fires a fourth of a mile away. That's important information for people that live in an area where there is a fire and a home engulfed in flames in this area, is you can be a fourth of a mile away and be affected in seconds.
Yeah, exactly. And we all live in Southern California, and we've all lived through Santa Ana's, and we've had lots of fires. One of the things people can do to help is, every fire starts with just a little ember. So if you're in an area and there's a fire, it can be a quarter mile away, a half mile away, and the smoke is blowing towards your property, that's a good opportunity for you to, again, take a look around and make sure that you don't see something around your property. A little embers start landing. That's a real danger sign for you, and you could call the fire department and try to get them over there to whatever area you're in. Say you see spot fires, you can be the eyes and ears for the fire department and help them out by telling them, hey, I think we've got a spot fire over by our house. And if you got a garden hose, you can put it out, do a lot of positive stuff that way. If you have a lot of stuff laying around your house, put it inside your garage. Get it away from the outside of your house where it can catch fire easily.
So you're telling people they can get a garden hose. Drill down a little bit what we can do, can't do, what we should do, and when we need to stop doing it and get out.
Well, that is a very good question, because that's a difficult thing. We try not to have people try to do too much themselves because they can put themselves in danger. If the fire department or the police department is given an evacuation order, then you do need to just evacuate at that time. But if you're in an area where you're still a half a mile away from the fire and you see those spots and you've got a garden hose and you haven't left yet, they haven't ordered you out, and you're comfortable with it, then you could go ahead and attempt to do that. But we try not to get people to do too much of that, because that can lead to a lot of dangerous situations. We don't know what everybody's mobility is. We don't know what the roads are going to be like for evacuating. But the biggest thing to remember is that if they do ask you to evacuate, we do want people to just go ahead and evacuate, get out of the area, and let the firefighters come in and do what they need to do. And remember that if there are spot fires, the firefighters, they're going to be looking for that. So they'll probably be coming into your area if the smoke's blowing that way, looking for those sort of things.
Is it good to put on your sprinkler system then?
Well, that's another good question. Is people have done it, and they've saved their properties by turning on their sprinklers. But remember, the source of your water is the municipal water supply usually. and that's the same water supply the firefighters use to get their water. So if everybody turns their sprinklers on, you can have a problem with draining the water supply quicker than you want to, and it can adversely affect the firefighters' ability to get water out of the system. So again, that's kind of a hit and miss thing as far as if it's just turning it on in the yard, it can help, but it's not going to necessarily be the wherewithal to save everything on your property. So it's better to have the fire department do all those things.
Yeah, great advice from retired Fire Captain Bob Lyon joining us this afternoon as we look live in Sky 10, and you see the helos coming over right now, another drop as those ground crews have the sprays on a house that they've been fighting now for well over an hour. This is in Lakeside, the Los Coches fire. It's at the Monterey Mobile Home Park, 118 sites, a 55 and up area. We do know there are injuries, but we don't know the severity of those injuries. And this is all in an urban wildlife interface neighborhood, a lot of brush, a canyon behind those homes, a lot of green, dry brush. We are getting a report right now that the forward progress has been stopped, and a lot of it is because they've been able to get this one home under somewhat of a control from what it was 10 minutes ago. It has been stopped at a revised size of 5.3 acres. The incident command giving us that update just a couple of minutes ago. They're calling the fire 5% contained now, and the two previously requested hand crews have been canceled. But as we talk with Bob Lyon again, and we've all been looking at live pictures of Sky 10, they might not need these two additional hand crews, but there are a lot of crews on the ground. When you assessed, Bob, and you see all those crews just around this one house, what are your thoughts on that?
They put the initial call in, the firefighter, the first thing unit that gets there, they're going to size up the fire. And he obviously did a good job and realized that the fire was going to expand to more than he could handle with one unit. So he put in a request for additional units. And then when the incident commander gets there, he evaluates everything, and he put in a request for more. And again, they're aware of the weather conditions. So what they're going to want to do is those crews you see on the ground, they're working. They're going to want to try to get people in there to relieve those guys, because after a while, you know, the heat exhaustion and heat stroke can start affecting the firefighters because they're wearing an awful lot of gear. They're working really hard. So they're going to be aware of that, but they're going to keep bringing people in there because we bring in as many people as we think we're going to need to handle the situation for the entire length of that incident. And the last thing you want to do is turn people away and have the thing blow up on you. So you'll see sometimes you might see a lot of fire units sitting, and they're in what they call staging areas, and they're just waiting to be called up to the fire if they're needed, and if not, then eventually they'll be released to go home. But they try to get as many units as they can there to handle what they think that fire could progress to. And if they've got it 5% contained, that's a good sign that they at least have some portion of it contained, and they're feeling like they're starting to get a handle on it. But they'll keep those units there so they're absolutely convinced that it's not going to get worse than it is.
And we see them to the right of our screen right now, an entire line of those firefighters that we're talking about. This is all north of Interstate 8. It's at East Los Coches, Highway Business 8. It has spread. It was spreading east, multiple structures, 4 initially, then the fire, there were spot fires. It was spot fires were burning east. A couple of more structures were lost. All of that per the Lakeside Fire Protection District. And Bob Lyon, as these crews all responded about 3 o'clock, and you talk about the heat they're under in this area, about how long will one fire crew stay in this kind of heat and in this kind of a battle before they do get relieved?
Well, most firefighters, they'll stay till they're just about ready to drop. So that's something the incident commanders kind of keep track of, and they want to try to relieve them because they don't ever want to give up until they put it out. And then each individual firefighter is going to be a little bit differently. Some people can work out there for a lot longer than others.